The vegetable of the month for December is winter squash. In this video, we'll visit a farmer's market and a farm to learn more about winter squash and make a delicious recipe for mashed butternut squash.
Hi, my name is Mary Kate, and I'm the owner and farmer at Meadowland Farm. This is my stand at the Beacon Farmers Market. Right now it's cold season, so we have a lot of storable vegetables and a lot of nice leafy greens. So things like cabbage and squash we'll keep all through the winter, and we'll sell it at the market inside through to the spring.
Yeah, do you want to tell us what you have right here?
That's a honey nut squash. It's a sort of super sweet, nice little bite-sized squash. This is butternut delicata koji nut. What's really fun about the farmer's market is even though it's cold, it's really great to come here and interact with all the people as the farmer, which is not something you get to do when you go to a grocery store. The other good thing is everything was grown within an hour from Beacon, so it's very, very local, which supports the local community and economy, unlike things coming in from California, which also makes it more seasonal, which is better for the environment because we're not flying things and shipping things from another country or another state from very far away. And yeah, I think that's really important.
Hi, it's Farmer Leah, and I'm here at Common Ground Farm in our barn visiting the winter squash. These are a few of the winter squash that we grew this year. Winter squash, they grow on vines out in the fields. We plant them in May, in the early summer, late springtime, and they grow all summer, and we harvest them in September. And when we take them out of the field, we put them into our greenhouse, which is our plastic, our big plastic tunnels on the farm. And they stay there for a few weeks to cure, which means that they, their skins become really hard, any scars or cuts heal. And it's a process that helps them store longer because this is a storage crop. This is something we harvest in September and hope that we can keep around all winter and eat throughout the winter. You can see that they come in lots of different shapes and sizes and colors. This is a spaghetti squash. When you cook it, the inside starts to look like spaghetti noodles. This one's called red curry. This one's delicata. This one you can eat right away, straight out of the field. It's really sweet and tasty, and you can eat the skin and the inside and the seeds. This is a pie pumpkin. It's something you use for pumpkin pies. It's really sweet. And this is a butternut squash. And so, you know, these ones back here, you don't want to eat the skin. It's a little bit too tough, but this one, you can eat the skin.
Thank you, Farmer Mary Kate and Farmer Leah, for growing squash for the community. Hi, I'm Nicole with Land to Learn. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm going to be making mashed butternut squash today, so follow along with this recipe if you'd like to make it also. I'll show you our ingredients and tools that we'll need, but the first thing I'm going to do is preheat the oven. So I'm going to be roasting the squash, and I need the oven to be hot and ready when I'm ready to put the squash in. And the oven takes time to get hot. So we preheat the oven when we start a recipe. I'm going to set it to 350 degrees now. The ingredients we'll need for the butternut squash mash are 1 butternut squash, olive oil, milk or cream, butter, salt, cinnamon, and maple syrup. The tools we'll need are a knife and cutting board, measuring spoons, a large spoon for scooping out seeds, a fork or something to mash with, a tray or baking sheet, or baking pan it's called, and also a large bowl. So I have my butternut squash here. This is a pretty big one, and you can hear it's hard. So it's going to be challenging to cut into this. I'm going to need a big knife, so please have an adult help. You really need adult supervision to cut the squash. It can be hard, and it's not always safe. So I'm going to be very careful and put it on my cutting board and cut off the ends first. It has really pretty color. It's bright orange inside. And you can see there are seeds inside. So now I'm going to cut it in half this way and scoop out the seeds. Butternut squash usually only has seeds at this round part on the bottom. We're gonna take out the seeds, and then when we bake it, this will be nice and soft, and we're gonna scoop this part out, and we can eat all the inside, but not the skin. So now I'm gonna use a big spoon and just scoop out these seeds like this, and all this stringy bit in there and the seeds. I'm just gonna scoop it out so it's nice and clean. And it should look like that when I'm done. Now my butternut squash, cut side up, goes onto a baking sheet or pan. And then I'm going to measure 2 tablespoons of olive oil to drizzle over the top. So I find my measuring spoon that says 1 capital T for tablespoon, and I measure 1 tablespoon and pour that on, 2 tablespoons and pour that on. I always like to have a dish rag that I can use when I'm cooking to wipe my hands or wipe things down with. Now I'm going to find the measuring spoon that says 1 teaspoon or 1 lowercase t, and I'm going to measure 1 teaspoon of salt. Now I don't want my teaspoon to be heaping like that. I want it to be nice and even, flat on top. So I'm just gonna slide my finger across to make a nice flat, full but not more than 1 teaspoon of salt. Sprinkle that salt on my butternut squash. Now I'm gonna, just to make sure it's all evenly coated, I'm just gonna use my hand and just smear the oil and salt evenly coated, not too much in one spot or another. Okay, and then it is ready to go in the oven, 350 degrees, for probably an hour. This is a big squash, and I want it to get really soft and tender. So it'll probably take about an hour. I'm going to set a timer. My butternut squash has finished baking. It actually did have to bake for longer than an hour because it wasn't soft enough. I want it to be really soft, and the way you can make sure it is by taking a spoon and seeing if you can scoop it. Is it soft enough that the spoon easily goes in and you can scoop it out? If it's not, then you have to put it back in the oven for a little bit longer. So this ended up cooking for an hour and 10 minutes. So if yours is this big, it's probably going to need to cook for that long also. And now it's soft enough where I can actually scoop out the yummy orange flesh, we call it. And I'll show you. So I don't want to eat the skin, so what I'm going to do is use my spoon to just scoop out this part that we want to eat, and I'm going to scoop it out and put it into this bowl. Now, of course, it's going to be very hot when it first comes out of the oven, so I let this cool for about a half hour before picking it up, because that would have been really hot. So now it's cool enough that I can pick it up, and I'm scooping it. That was a fun, messy job. My hands definitely need to be wiped off after that. So I've got all the soft, yummy inside and none of the skin in the bowl. So I'm going to add some milk or cream, and the recipe says 1/8 cup, but I don't have a 1/8 on here. It doesn't say 1/8, which is 1/8. but I know that 1/8 cup is 3 tablespoons about. So I'm gonna find my tablespoon measure, and you're gonna put 3 tablespoons of milk or cream. So I'm gonna measure out 1, 2, 3. Now this was a pretty big butternut squash, as you saw. So I'm gonna do the 3 tablespoons of milk. But if yours was small, like look how tiny this one is. If you used a small butternut squash, you might want to do a little bit less of all of the ingredients that I'm about to mention. So I'm going to make this a sweet dish. So I'm going to add some butter, cinnamon, and syrup. I want 1 tablespoon of butter. So I'm going to cut off a little bit of my stick of butter here and measure it 1 tablespoon by just sticking it in here and making a nice even tablespoon measure. Sometimes on the stick of butter, again, this is a nice messy job. Look how I'm doing this. Butter all over my fingers. See, this is why I always keep a rag to wipe my hands on. A lot of times on the stick of butter, it will have markings for where to cut off to get a perfect tablespoon, but mine didn't have that, so I'm just doing it this way. I'm gonna scoop that butter in there. And now I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, yummy maple syrup here. Fill up 1 nice even tablespoon, pour that in. And I'm going to do 1 teaspoon. Remember, that's the one that the lowercase t. So 1 teaspoon, smaller than a tablespoon, of cinnamon. So if you have one that shakes out, you can try to fill up your teaspoon that way, or if you can open it, you take the lid off and you can put the teaspoon measurement in and make sure you have a nice even spoonful. So you want to even it out and then sprinkle your cinnamon in. Ooh, this is going to be so yummy. Now I have all my ingredients in the bowl and I want to mash it and mix it. So I'm going to use a fork and just mash and mix until everything is soft and there's not a lot of chunks. Like I want to try to get no chunks in here. You might have some other kitchen tool, like some kind of masher, maybe something like this. That is good for mashing, or a potato masher. Whatever you have, you want to mash, mash, mash till it's nice and even and soft and not lumpy. This looks so good. It smells delicious too. I can't wait to try it. That was really good. Butternut squash on its own is pretty sweet, and so just adding a little bit of the syrup really brings out that sweetness, and then it's balanced with the cinnamon and salt, butter. That's awesome. You can add other flavors too. If you don't want to make it sweet, try doing garlic powder and scallions or any other spices that you like. You can add to your butternut squash mash. You might even, once you've got it mashed, before you add any flavor to it, separate it out into different bowls and then try adding different flavors to each one. And maybe you can serve it to different people and they can add their own flavor to it. Once you've got it mashed, you can do whatever you want to it. And I hope you enjoy making butternut squash for this month, December, Vegetable of the Month. Thanks for learning with me and cooking with me. Thank you to Common Ground Farm and the Beacon City School District Food Service Department for this delicious recipe.